Good morning, welcome and thank you for joining with us here at Grace Community Church. My name's Amit, I'm a member at Grace and it's my pleasure and privilege to welcome you and to steer us through today's service. The format is that we're going to spend some time praying, which is how we talk to God. We'll spend some time singing, which is how we praise God. We're going to listen to what God has to say to us by reading the Bible, and that Bible passage will be explained to us by Graham a little bit later on, who will show how it's relevant and applicable to our lives today. Before the coronavirus was ever a thing, Grace used to meet twice on a Sunday, once in the mornings and once in the evenings. In July, we've started those evening sessions up again at 6 p.m. on YouTube, and we're in the middle of a series exploring what it means to be human. If you've missed any of those sessions, you can go back to the YouTube channel and look back through the previous sessions and you can find those. But feel free to log on again this evening at 6 p.m. and join us for that. With so many things moving online, it can be quite overwhelming at times. You can feel bombarded with information. If you wanted to spend a bit more time finding out about Grace, getting in touch, you can do so at connectedtograce.com. That's our online hub, and you can go through that at your own leisure, at your own pace, and you can contact us if you've got any questions, or you can find out what we're about. So in a minute, we're going to be singing our first song. And then after that, Karen will be reading Psalm 71 to us, which is part of the Bible that we're looking at today. After that, Gideon will be talking to the children in a session called Bite Size. It is predominantly aimed at children, but it can be useful for all of us. So please do check that out. But before we do any of that, let's pray together, shall we? Our living God, thank you for this opportunity to come together to praise and learn about you. Thank you that you are in charge of everything. With so much uncertainty and change in the world right now, it's a weight off our shoulders to know that you are in control and you have a plan. We're sorry for the times when we try to manage on our own and things fall apart. Thank you for being patient with us. Help us now to concentrate on you. Focus our minds on what we're going to hear and remove any distractions that may creep in. We pray that this time will be a benefit to us and our relationship with you. The Bible tells us that whenever Christians meet together, that you will be with them. Whilst we can't all meet in the same building at the moment, we know that you wrote the laws of space and time, so we ask that you would be with us all now. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Our first song today is God the Uncreated One. If you're happy to, sing along with us. If you're uncomfortable with doing that, the words will be on the screen for you to read and concentrate on.
Time and this sinless Lamb, crucified this faultless Lamb, buried by the sons of men, rescued by the Father's hands, to reign as King forever, reign as King forever, reign as King forevermore. Eternal God of grace, we crown you with the highest praise. Heaven shouts and saints adore. You're holy, holy, holy Lord. For joy in everlasting life, all is love and faith is sight. Justice strong and praise is right. At the name of Jesus Christ, King of kings forever, King of kings forever, King of kings forevermore. King of kings forever, King of kings forever, King of kings forevermore.
It's time for our reading now. We're going to Psalm 71, so grab a Bible or follow along with the words on screen. In you, Lord, I have taken refuge. Let me never be put to shame. In your righteousness, rescue me and deliver me. Turn your ear to me and save me. Be my rock of refuge to which I can always go. Give the command to save me, for you are my rock and my fortress. Deliver me, my God, from the hand of the wicked, from the grasp of those who are evil and cruel. For you have been my hope, Sovereign Lord, my confidence since my youth. From birth I have relied on you. You brought me forth from my mother's womb. I will ever praise you. I have become a sign to many. You are my strong refuge. My mouth is filled with your praise, declaring your splendour all day long. Do not cast me away when I am old. Do not forsake me when my strength is gone. For my enemies speak against me. Those who wait to kill me conspire together. They say, God has forsaken him. Pursue him and seize him, for no one will rescue him. Do not be far from me, my God. Come quickly, God, to help me. May my accusers perish in shame. May those who want to harm me be covered with scorn and disgrace. As for me, I will always have hope. I will praise you more and more. My mouth will tell of your righteous deeds, of your saving acts all day long, though I know not how to relate them all. I will come and proclaim your mighty acts, Sovereign Lord. I will proclaim your righteous deeds, yours alone. Since my youth, God, you have taught me, and to this day I declare your marvellous deeds. Even when I am old and grey, do not forsake me, my God, till I declare your power to the next generation, your mighty acts to all who are to come. Your righteousness, God, reaches to the heavens. You have done great things. Who is like you, God? Though you have made me see troubles, many and bitter, you will restore my life again. From the depths of the earth you will again bring me up. You will increase my honour and comfort me once more. I will praise you with the harp for your faithfulness, my God. I will sing praise to you with the lyre, Holy One of Israel. My lips will shout for joy when I sing praise to you, I whom you have delivered. My tongue will tell of your righteous acts all day long, for those who wanted to harm me have been put to shame and confusion. It's now time for Bite Size with Gideon.
Well, good morning everyone. Thank you, Karen, for reading that psalm to us. If you tuned in last week, don't worry if you didn't. Martin closed by reminding us that we have a song to sing and that God has given us a voice to sing it. And that really flows into the next part of this psalm that we're looking at this morning. And our big idea today is to pass it on. God doesn't want us to hold on to this song, this good news. He wants us to tell others and to pass it on. What kind of things do we pass on? Well, we could talk about viruses, but we don't really want to talk about that this morning, do we? What about Pass the Parcel, a great party game? There's always someone, isn't there, when you play that game that just wants to hold on to that parcel as they kind of go into slow motion and everyone's shouting, pass it on, and eventually they pass it on. What about gifts that we get that we don't really want and that we want to pass on? They call it re-gifting. I call it ungrateful, but 1 in 3 of us pass it on. What about school sports day? I used to love the relay race, getting that baton passed round the team and to the finish line first. It might be something within our family that we pass down through the family line, maybe a family heirloom or some precious jewellery that we pass on. It could be property or money. There was a millionaire in America that gave his whole £4 million. He passed it all on to his dog. What a waste of money. It might not be physical things, it might be our DNA or our genetics that we pass on. And that might be why we've got dashing good looks or a sparkling personality. Unfortunately for me, that all passed me by and I just got a lazy eye and some webbed feet. But Psalm 71, David writes it to remind us that God wants us to pass on the good news of all the great and wonderful and marvellous things that he has done. We read that throughout this psalm. He says, my mouth will tell of your righteousness. I will proclaim your righteous deeds. I will declare your mighty acts. How do we do it? How do we do it? Well, Graham's going to come in a moment and he's going to help us explore that a little further. But it's to do with our mouths, isn't it? David in verse 8 gives us a clue because he says, my mouth is filled with your praise, declaring your splendour all day long. I don't know if you've ever played Chubby Bunnies. It's a game where you try and put as many marshmallows into your mouth as possible, and I think that the world record is 44 marshmallows. You need a sizable mouth to play this game. Hello Bethan. I'd love it if you played this game at home, maybe sent me your pictures of you playing it, but using it as a reminder that God wants our hearts and our minds and our mouths to be full of his praise. He wants us to share and shout and sing and speak and tell and pass on all the great things, all the good things that he has done for us. That we might tell people that he's a God of great love, that he's a God of faithfulness, that he is a God of great power and might, that he is the creator God. We could go on, couldn't we? God wants our mouths to be full of his praise. He wants us not to hold on to this song, to hold on to this treasure. He wants us to tell people, he wants us to pass it on, that we might praise him, so that everyone might know his name, and so that everything that has breath might praise the Lord. Pass it on. I'm going to pass over now to Graham, who's going to come and speak to us further from that passage.
Well, hello everyone. So glad you can join for the third in this 4-part series in Psalm 71. My name's Graham and we're going to focus in together on verse 15 to 18. So if you've got a Bible or an app open, that's going to really help us as we go through. This is a passage all about what we pass on, all about passing it on. Verse 15 starts with, my mouth will tell of your righteous deeds. At the end of verse 18 it says, I'll declare your power to the next generation, your mighty acts to all who are to come. This is a passage about what we pass on. And we're going to look at three essential questions, and I'll tell you in a second why I think they're essential. But let me put those up on the screen for you. Three essential questions are this. Number one, what are you passing on? What are you passing on? Number two, who are you passing it on to? And three, how are you passing it on? What are you passing on? Who are you passing it on to? And how are you passing it on? Now, here's why I think those are three essential questions for us today. It's because whether you know it or not, you are passing something on. Either consciously or subconsciously, you are passing on something about what you believe to be the most important fundamental thing in life. And I think they're essential for us to hear today, because I think we can accidentally communicate something to the next generation if we're not thinking about it. We can actually accidentally communicate something about what we believe to be the most important thing in life, whether that is money or looks or success or school grades. Even for us, I think we hold marriage as something that is to be aimed towards. Actually, we can accidentally communicate what is the most important thing in life to our next generation, and you are passing something on, whether you know it or not. I heard parents say before, "Well, I'm not going to actively teach my kids about God, because if it's true, then they'll find it out anyway." To which I'd say, no, like 2 + 2 = 4, and that is true, but your responsibility is to teach them that, right? And so that's why those three questions are essential for us now. What are we passing on? Who are we passing it on to? And how are we passing it on? So let's start with firstly, what are we passing it on? I think it's probably the most important, so we'll spend a bit of time here. What are we passing on of first importance? In this envelope is something of first importance that involves something that me and my wife Jo are passing on. In this envelope is our wills, our last will and testament, which describes in some detail what we are going to pass on should the worst happen to Jo and I. It's a document of first importance, especially for our kids, but also for one or two of you watching this stream now, of first importance because you're named in it for various reasons. That is a first importance about what we pass on. In the Bible, in the New Testament, in 1 Corinthians 15, a writer called Paul, who's writing to new Christians, to younger Christians, he's saying that this is the thing of first importance that I pass on to you. What's he talking about? He's talking about the gospel. He's talking about the good news of Jesus. The good news is of first importance, the thing that I pass on to you. And where's the good news in Psalm 71? Where's the good news here? Well, I think it comes in one tiny little word that repeats over and over in these short 3 verses. Did you notice the word your comes on? In 3 verses it comes 8 times. And now when you read in your Bible and you see something repeated that often in just a short space of time, you're probably onto something. And here's why the word your is such good news. Let's read it together. My mouth will tell of your righteous deeds. Verse 15 we're in here. Of your saving acts all day long. Verse 16, I will come and proclaim your mighty acts. I will proclaim your righteous deeds, yours alone. Verse 17 says, this day I declare your marvellous deeds. I declare your power, says verse 18, to the next generation, your mighty acts to those who are to come. The reason that's good news is because this psalm tells us that the thing that we pass on is all about God and not about me. This psalm doesn't say we're passing on all the stuff about my righteous acts, how I've kept my promises, which frankly sometimes I can't. This isn't talking about my mighty power and my mighty deeds, which are fallible and pretty unreliable. The good news is that it's all about his mighty deeds, God's mighty deeds. I think this is what distinguishes Christianity from a lot of different world faiths, is that with other viewpoints, it's all about my righteous acts to make me right with God. What can I do to get right with God? And Christianity says, no, it's what God has done to restore the relationship. It's his goodness. It's his care for people. It's his promises. And that's such good news. I once heard someone talk at Grace. It was an evening service, although I can't remember who was talking, but it stayed with me for a long time. They said, who is the star of your social media feed? Who's the star of your social media feed? And it stuck with me because I don't just think it applies to the internet. I think it applies to whole life. Who's the star of your life? Is the point of my life to point towards me and my mighty power and my righteous acts? Or is it to point towards God? Is the star of my life God, or is it me? What do I want to pass on and model to the next generation? Do I want them to follow me, or do I want them to follow Jesus? The other good news in this passage, as a side note, is that whether you are young, old, new Christian, been a Christian a long time, the writer of this psalm is looking back over his life and he knows God's promises, and his message is that God will not let you down. God will not let you down. So whether you've been a Christian 100 years or 100 days, the promise to know is that God will not let you down. That is good news this morning. So that's what we pass on. What we pass on. The second question is, who do we pass it on to? Who do we pass it on to? And I want you to hear me right here, because when I talk about the next generation, I'm not just talking about parents with kids. This can be for young people in your sphere of influence anywhere, younger people than you. Not only that, but it can be people who are younger Christians. So not just being physically younger, but maybe spiritually younger than you. So if you're thinking, well, I don't have kids, or I don't have much family around, then this is for you as much as it is for anybody else. This is the passing on of what's fundamentally most important and true in your life to those in your sphere of influence. So, if you are an auntie and uncle, you have nieces and nephews, maybe you're a spiritual auntie and uncle, and you've got younger people in your church family who look to you for what are you passing on about your faith, about your beliefs. Those of you, this is one of the best things about Grace Community Church, I think, is the spread of ages across our church family. I love it. Now, if you're a teenager watching this morning, maybe you're in Havoc, you need to know that you are passing things on to those who are 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. That kids that age are looking up to you for something that you're passing on, that you're communicating intentionally or unintentionally about what church is like, about what it's like to be a Christian. How you communicate with each other, how you commit to anything at church, how you talk about your faith is communicating something to those aged 4, 5 and 6. If you're in your 20s and 30s, how you are with church and your faith and how you talk about it communicates something in our church family to those who are in their teens. If you're in your 40s and 50s, it communicates something in their 20s and 30s. If you're age 60 and above, as verse 18 says, you're old and grey, well, you're communicating something to the rest of us. We need you. If your hair is grey, we need you so preciously and valuably in our church family. So let me just say something to the under 30s and then say something to the over 60s. If you're under 30, find someone with grey hair and tap them up for some wisdom, for some advice, for something passed down. People in our church family have lived a long lifetime and they have a lifelong wisdom to pass down to you. Some of them longer lives than others, let's face it. But they've got wisdom to pass down. So why not pick up the phone? Why not go for a socially distanced coffee or glass of wine in the garden and say, okay, can I pick your brains on this area of life? What wisdom can you pass down to me? That's the word to the under 30s, the word to the over 60s, is that you take great encouragement from this passage that God is not done with you yet. God has such tremendous use for you to pass something down to the next generation of believers. We need you desperately. Some of you might be saying, I was hoping to take some kind of spiritual retirement, if I'm honest, but that is not the time. We need you. God is not done with you yet. So that's the kind of the who of what we're passing on. We've looked at what we're passing on, who we're passing it on to. Let's just spend a little bit of time thinking about the how we pass it on. And this is the other kind of major part of this short bit of Psalm 71, because it's another word which crops up a number of times in just a short space of time. It's the word declare. Declare. Or it kind of changes a bit. Sometimes it's declare, sometimes it's tell, sometimes it's proclaim. Let's look at it again. Verse 15, my mouth will tell of your righteous deeds. Verse 16, I will come and proclaim your mighty acts. I will proclaim your righteous deeds. Verse 17, to this day I declare your marvellous deeds. Verse 18, till I declare your power to the next generation. There's something about speaking it out, isn't there? Declaring it, telling it. In fact, verse 15 starts by saying, my mouth will declare your righteous deeds. There's something about verbalizing it, about actually proclaiming it, which is important to what the psalmist is getting at here. In Romans chapter 10, Paul, the same writer as before, he's speaking to Christians and saying, look, people need to believe the gospel. People need to believe God's goodness and hear about Jesus. Well, how are they going to believe it? Well, they're going to believe it by hearing it. They need to hear it. Well, how are they going to hear it? Well, someone needs to tell them about it. It needs to be expressed out of your mouth. And so the challenge here is, for me, I think, do I know my testimony well enough? Can I express that verbally? The promises of God in my life? Challenge for you might be, how do I have intentional conversations with my kids or grandkids or nieces and nephews? Maybe outside of just Sunday. Like, how do we do it at story time and bedtime and prayer time? How do I learn to declare out of my mouth the promises of God? Because I think the danger for our generation is this. We think it's all about modelling a good life, about modelling the Christian faith and not necessarily telling about it. Do you know what I mean? So we model what it's like to be a Christian, but we never tell them about the gospel, about God's goodness, about Jesus. And I think that's a danger, that we're all model and no declare. That said, it's also a danger to be all declare and no model, isn't it? Christianity is caught as well as taught. If you've got parents, which is all of us, or if you have kids, which is some of us, you'll know that saying, do as I say, not as I do, doesn't work, does it? It just doesn't work. Like, people can spot hypocrites. People can spot at any age if you're not practicing what you're preaching. So actually Christianity is caught as well as taught. It is modelled as well as being declared. Have you seen the film The Jungle Book? I've not seen the new CGI version. I used to love the 1960s cartoon version as a kid. My favourite character in it is King Louie. He's the big orange orangutan. And he's got a song right in the middle of the film. He goes, I'm the king of the swingers, oh, the jungle VIP. I'm not going to sing again because it's too painful. But in the chorus of that song, he goes, Ooby-doo, join with me now, I want to be like you, ooh. No singing, okay. Ooby-doo, I want to be like you. I want to walk like you, talk like you too. If you're in our church, you've got to know that there's people generations below you who are looking at you and saying, consciously or subconsciously, I want to walk like you and I want to talk like you too. Ooby-doo. Maybe not that bit. They want to walk like you and they want to talk like you. So what you pass on to them, intentionally or unintentionally, has a big impact. Put it like this. When we meet together as a whole church, I play drums. Some of you know this. I play drums. I love playing drums in church. I love it. I play enthusiastically. Some of you might use the word loud, but I prefer the term enthusiastic. And I play week in, week out. I have done for 10 years. I love it. And when you're playing drums at church, you turn up early. You lug out the heavy drums, you set them up early in the morning, and you practice other songs, and you know those songs, and then you play with passion. I love it. And as a drummer at church, someone who's been doing it for years and years and years, I was really, really gratified and satisfied when Obi, so Obi is Amit's little boy. I was sent this video a couple of years ago. It's really great as a drummer in church to kind of receive this video of Obi saying some of his first words as a 2-year-old. Check out this video.
Amazing Archie plays the drums. Does he play the big drums?
Hey, wait, what? Archie? Hang on. No. I was the drummer. So, never mind about Obi. Thank goodness I can rely on my boy Will, my own son, my guy, Will, who's watched me grow up through church and sees his daddy, the church drummer, play drums in church, and I'm just so proud of him. This is a little video of Will, also from a couple of years ago at Christmas. Have a look at this. Just like Archie. Unbelievable. So there you go, Archie, you're on, mate. Great. But you know what? Here's the point. The point is this. Archie turns up week in, week out. He's faithful with it. He's enthusiastic with his drumming. He loves it, he has a passion for it. Now, Archie has never sat Will and Obi down and taught them the drums, has he? He's never taught them about paradiddles and rudiments and how to read music and how to set up a drum kit. He's never taught them that, but they've caught something of his enthusiasm for it. Archie spends time talking to these boys and just modelling what it's like to be at church and to be a drummer and all the rest of it. And so in time, Will and Obi are going to want to learn the drums, aren't they? Because they've caught something of how infectious Archie's enthusiasm is for it. I wonder if you're like that with your Christian faith. I wonder if the way you're modelling it and the way you're modelling church to those younger than you, both physically and spiritually, says something about Christianity, says something about God's goodness and God's promises that other people are going to want to be taught about and learn about. Because God gets it. God gets that it's both caught and taught. And it's probably kind of the last thing we'll say for this morning. God gets that it's both modelled and declared, both caught and taught. Here's why I say that. God didn't just give us a perfect law to try and follow. God didn't just give us a set of instructions for living life. He didn't just give us his perfect promises. He gave us a perfect person. He didn't just tell us to go and live life. He gave someone to follow. And that person is Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ, the absolute perfection of modelling and declaring. He models God's goodness and he declares God's goodness. But not only that, but on the cross he pays the price and covers over all of our failings in those two areas. For when we haven't modelled what it's like to follow Jesus. And when we have ducked out of declaring through our conversations what the gospel is, we've all failed in both those areas. And if we're honest, we've failed in many other areas as well, haven't we? That create a sin barrier between us and God. And on the cross, Jesus covers over all those failings. More than that, in Matthew 28, Jesus gives us a mandate for all these things we've been talking about. A mandate for passing it on. He doesn't make it an optional extra of being a Christian, passing it on. He gives us a mandate. In Matthew 28, he says, therefore go and make disciples. Disciples, people who want to follow on, go and make disciples. People who want to kind of follow in your footsteps because you're following in mine. Go and model God's goodness and go and declare God's goodness. Go and make disciples, people you're going to pass this on to, and people who are going to follow ultimately in Jesus' footsteps. Did you notice that wonderful word in the middle there of verse 18? It's the word forsake. More good news in this psalm, because we deserve to be forsaken by God, to be rejected and forgotten by God because of all the sin barrier in our life. But Jesus, the one perfect person, the one person who deserved to not be forsaken by God, was on the cross in our place. And so may you, my friends, follow that Jesus. May you know his goodness. May you model his goodness and declare his promises. And may you pass it on from generation to generation to generation.
Thank you so much, Graham. Isn't that really helpful that we've got an assurance that we don't have to rely on our own actions to get right with God, and that we've got a perfect example in Jesus of how to live? Two of those verses that we read earlier say, I will praise you with the harp for your faithfulness. I will sing praise to you with the lyre, Holy One of Israel. My lips will shout for joy when I sing praise to you. My tongue will tell of your righteous acts all day long. Let's do that now, shall we, as we sing our final song, All Praise to Him.
Oh, praise to him, the God of light, who formed the mountains by his might. Oh, praise to him who names the stars that sing his fame in skies afar. Oh, praise to him who reigns in love, who guides the galaxies above. Yet thanks to him our every prayer, with sovereign power and tender care. Oh, praise to him whose love is seen in Christ the Son, the servant King, who left behind his glorious throne to pay the ransom for his own. Oh, praise to him who humbly came to bear our sorrow, sin and shame, who lived to die, who died to rise, the all-sufficient sacrifice. Oh, praise to him whose power imparts the love of God within our hearts, the spirit of all truth and peace, the fount of joy and holiness. To Father, Son, and Spirit now, our souls we lift, our words we bow, to you the triune God raise, with loving hearts and songs of praise. To Father, Son, and Spirit now, our souls we lift, our words we bow, to you the triune God raise, with loving hearts and songs of praise.
Thank you for meeting with us here at Grace Community Church Online. It's been a pleasure to have you. Please do feel free to log on again at 6 p.m. this evening to meet for the evening session, where we will be looking at our continued series. At the end of the meeting today, there will be a slide that appears with some contact details. If there's anything that you found particularly challenging or that you want to discuss further, or if you feel that there's something going on in your life that you'd appreciate some prayer for, or if you feel that there's other ways that Grace could possibly help you, please do get in touch with us. We'd be delighted to hear from you, and we'll get in touch as soon as possible. Those of you who attend Grace regularly will receive our Friday emails. That email will contain our Zoom chat details. So normally after a church meeting where we meet together in the same building, we'd enjoy a cup of tea together. That unfortunately can't happen, but you can stick the kettle on, make a brew, and have a catch up online. It's the next best thing. So please do that shortly. But before we go our separate ways, let's just pray together, shall we? Our loving and perfect God, thank you that you have cleared the slate for us, that all we have to do is accept your gift of forgiveness to get right with you. We pray that we would continue to remember your saving acts and your righteous deeds throughout the coming week. Be with us all as we go about our lives, and help us keep in mind your great message that we are passing on. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Oh, praise to him, the God of light, who formed the mountains by his might. Oh, praise to him who names the stars that sing his fame in skies afar. Oh, praise to him who reigns in love, who guides the galaxies above. Yet thanks to him our every prayer with